So you've been watching Lost?
Yeah, I've been watching Lost. Christine hasn't seen it before, so after Joe's been like championing it for months again.
I did binge it.
You did.
Yeah, I'm starting to binge it as well. So we're just doing like a few episodes a night.
Fair.
Weaving in between like all the trash TV that we also watch. So
I bought Crunchyroll recently, which was very good. It was a very good investment. I watched this week Dan.
Dan.
Yeah, that one, and which was crazy. It's good though.
I watched the first like 5 minutes and I was like, I don't know if this is for me. It's too much. It's like sensory overload for me in the first 5 minutes.
Isn't it also on Netflix?
It is on Netflix. That's where I watched it.
But it seems that the episodes are coming out earlier on Netflix because I noticed that Dragon Ball is on Netflix as well, but they haven't got episode 2 yet, I think. So they must be getting it earlier. But yeah. Highly recommend it. I'm not a huge anime fan though, but
why'd you get Crunchyroll then?
Because I go through waves. Because if I get like 5 recommendations of good animes to watch at one given time or in a short space of time, I'll usually just go, you know what, I'll try it. I tried that Blue Rock. It didn't
the
get
first season is incredible in
No,
terms of animation.
but
the second, if you watch the PowerPoints in season 2, it's quite amusing.
I was saying to Joe, if I watch animation, it's got to be like quite wild. It's got to be fantasy. Otherwise, to me, what's the point? Because I'll just watch.
You're acting as if like
Renford Rejects instead of Blue Lock.
You're literally like believing like under 18s in Japan all play football like they do in Blue Lock or something. They're so believable.
Nah, don't need that. Don't need that in my life.
Fine.
What you two been up to then, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll go into it in a moment. I was obviously in Lille this past weekend. So
well, don't ruin it. I'll introduce it. I'll introduce the podcast.
I mean, we were just generally talking about what we've been up to first. I mean, we could jump around all you want. I'm just saying, I was prepping for that, had the tournament, played the challenge on Monday, and now, unfortunately, I'm back here with you guys because I don't feel like we catch up that so much in the chat anymore. This is where we catch up between one another.
It's because we hate each other. That's why.
Sick of it.
Secretly.
I was. Thanks for asking. I was at a wedding at the weekend, so I didn't go to Lille, which I actually really wanted to play in Lille, but ended up at a wedding. Had a lot of fun. Got very hungover. Lots of dancing. It was one of my cousins, so that was really good. Just like I knew all the family there, so there was like 20 Bernards in one room, which is quite a lot of them. But
just
that was a
20?
lot of fun.
Any special moves on the floor?
I've got all the moves, mate.
I like the.
I tell you what, my knee the next day, like my head was pounding and my knee was like throbbing, my gammy knee.
So you couldn't get up, basically.
So yeah, it was pointless.
Yeah.
All of Sunday.
Fine.
So I watched Ludwig.
Sunday.
That was the series that I binged over the weekend. It's the David Mitchell one where he plays his brother. Well, he has to impersonate his brother, but it's literally just David Mitchell bumbling about, which is just incredible. It's very well done.
I heard a review of that saying that it was basically Mark from the Peep Show, but as a detective. Which is
it's Mark Corrigan 20 years on, and that's all I want. I want.
It's a pretty good premise.
I was sold on that, to be fair.
Yeah, fair enough.
What about yourself, Benjamin? It's T+3.
Well, baby hasn't come yet. Update for everyone who cares. The baby hasn't arrived just yet. So the due date was the 20th, which was on the weekend. We just went for a second midwife appointment in and around the due date. She said that it'll come by next Wednesday because otherwise we'll have to induce or go for a C-section or whatever. So there's a slim chance that I am having a spooky baby because if it could arrive on the 31st, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So pretty interesting. But otherwise, I did absolutely nothing.
Firstborns are supposedly usually late, from what I've been told.
I thought you were about to say spooky, but yeah, no.
They're always spooky.
They're always spooky.
It's a great time to actually be born because for birthdays, you'll have great dress up parties and stuff.
Yeah, that's what Harriet's mum said. So yeah, looking forward to that. If that's to materialize. So yeah, looking forward to that. But absolutely nothing otherwise because I've been kind of on standby emotionally, physically, and mentally. So it's all stations go ahead. I mean, I'm always to the dot as well. So after the 20th, I was kind of like, I can't understand why she's not born on the 20th. I don't get it. But you know, that's the way it is. That's the way it is. But yeah, I may as well introduce the podcast. So everybody listening, welcome to Spill the TCG podcast again, with me, Benjamin Rabiotti, graduate of the University of Cardiff Metropolitan, Alex Dow, who works in London for a big company, and Joe Bernard, Illustrial Extraordinaire. Probably flatline that one.
Illustrial, not
Illustrial. What did I say?
Couldn't
What
even
did I say?
get it. Illustrial.
Illustrial Extraordinaire. But yeah.
Right, sorry, I'm not getting paid for this, so can we not actually talk about it?
Lille Regional last weekend, obviously big, massive tournament in the EU space. Second regional now. Second major event into the season. Myself and Joe, obviously unfortunate not to attend that one in any capacity, but Alex, you were there playing. So Alex, take us through your experience of Lille.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously been in Lille a few times now, or a fair few times. We've kind of been back and forth as players and casters previously as well. So, yep, this time I got a chance to continue playing after my day 2 in Dortmund. I mentioned last week that I'd run it back with Palkia because I felt like it was a deck I put the most time into. It just needed tweaks based on the meta of what we had from Louisville and previously as well. So out came the grass package that we had with the Iron Leaves and the Crispin. In went a couple of more consistency cards, but again, still going with that kind of angle of, well, we need to work out how do we best decks that always want to go first and things like that as well. So in went a Ditto in place of that 4th Fan Rotom. I missed the Fan 4th Rotom, the 4th Fan Rotom, quite badly, unfortunately. But the Ditto went in there for a particular reason, and that was to get Klefki as a searchable out through the Fan Rotom ability as well. So that was a pretty cool little tech, particularly against matchups like Reggie Drago or Raging Bolt, which obviously had won in Louisville. Yeah, and generally it's still very much combo heavy and combo based. The tournament itself was good fun, like the venue itself and sort of the playing space. There was a lot more space this time in comparison to Dortmund, which was really nice. So I had plenty of space to get my notebook out, actually, try and remember my prizes through that means. And yeah, generally it was all very expected games into the meta. I think the meta was quite similar to what we mentioned it was going to be. But I played a couple of Raging Bolt. I played a Lugia. My first round was against a Lugia, which teched in 4 Klefki.
Very good.
So that was amusing, kind of.
Let's do nothing together.
really mischievous there, aren't they?
But both turn 2. I think in game 2 they got an Iron Hands turn 2. In game 1 they got a Lugia V-Star. Like they were able to get double Archeops and Lugia V-Star going turn 2 both times. It was just the fact that I saw Klefki the first time. I was like, okay, well, what am I up against? Gardevoir or something? Can't really do much. Just about get one Hoo-Hoo down. See him pitch a second Klefki. I'll go, okay, what am I up against? And then all of a sudden there's an Archeops hitting the bin at the same time. And it was just like, my mind exploded at that point. But yeah, that was a trial by fire, I think. Sure. But then I pulled myself back into a pretty good position, played a few different matchups. I think I played a Charizard as well. Most of the decks that were in that top sort of 6 meta breakdown. Mm-hmm. And eventually found myself in a winning position. I prayed to the gods for a decent matchup. Despite what other people think, I did get Raging Bolt as a matchup in my winning in. I was like, okay, this is great. Opened my hand. For the first time, I've never seen not an out to a Rotom or just saw Rotom at all. And somehow I was able to kind of cling into game 1, but it was too little too late by then. And then game 2, it kind of ended up quite similar where I couldn't get a turtle piece down to start comboing. So it was quite unfortunate. I think that the saddest thing I just kept hearing was, I think no one really understands that it's a good matchup for Palkia Noctowl in terms of a build, from building out a single prize board before you kind of go into taking 2 prizes before they do. And it just kind of grinded on my gears. I heard that a few times as I went into it. I was just like, dude, some people should just know a little bit more about some of these matchups, but it is what it is. Yeah. So I was raging, as it were. No, it was fine. It happens. That's Pokemon. The variance can sometimes kill you, and it got me in the end. Yeah. But otherwise, Lille, yeah, it was a pretty cool tournament. I'm sure we're gonna dive into quite a lot of it.
Yeah.
Quite quickly, shortly as well.
No, sure. Joe, you touched on why you would like to have played Lille. Perhaps maybe even the meta was the reason why, but we'll pop up the day one meta now, just a sneak peek into what was expected in day one. Now, Alex, you said that you expected a lot of your matchups that definitely did materialize going into your tournament. Playing Palkia, I'll just whittle off the day one meta. 15% Raging Bolts, then Lugia, Charizard in 10%. Palkia actually at 8%, with Regidrago and Dragapult sharing the same percentile as well. So it seems that it was diverse, but it was quite equal measure in terms of representation, which is pretty interesting actually. It's not like a big dip at some point. It's kind of like 15, 10 to 8 to then.
I think you just with Terrapagos is there as well. I mean, it just didn't make the day one, the best 6 of day one, the top 6. Yeah, it was only 7%.
Best of the rest, yeah. Terrapagos 7%, and then Gardevoir then down at 4, and then up represented, and then so kind of the rogue.
Forget
picks.
the rest.
Yeah,
the other 7 is probably what you'd massage into what we currently would expect the meta to be.
Yeah, those are probably far and away actually the best 7 decks in the game.
Joe, I think my question to you, Joe, was that is the versatility of the meta and what is kind of busted wide open in terms of what you can play. Is that the reason why you would have enjoyed playing?
I just want to play more Noctowl. I wanted to play Terrapagos. I probably would have played Terrapagos Duskmore at this one, to be honest, just because, I haven't had the chance to go to Cups yet in this format either, so I just want to get at the tables, really. That's really about it. But yeah, with these percentages, it is just like a pick your favorite or find the right tech to like shift a matchup a little bit enough for you to then think that what's otherwise like a mediocre matchup spread just like a slightly bit better, which is basically foreshadowing some lists that we might be looking at in a moment. So yeah, I think we're in this spot where there are a lot of viable decks, but a lot of them are much worse going second, which is the only awkward thing I think about the meta right now. But yeah, good diversity definitely, and there are complex strategies among a lot of these 7 decks, so it is rewarding good play as well.
Yeah, it's a mixture of kind of your big basic decks in Raging Bolt, or maybe even Terrapagos, but then of course you got the evolution orientation with Charizard, Dragapult, and maybe even you could consider the V-Star decks as well. But I think the biggest thing for me on reviewing the percentiles was that it doesn't seem that people are going, oh, I feel like this is going to be a good pick. This has a higher representation. That's with an equal amount of representation, it feels like you said, pick your favorite or pick rule of cool or whatever you want to do, however you want to call it. But it just seems like it's a very there's an equilibrium across the decks, which is very interesting.
I think it's really down to like the speed of the format means that you can do well with any of these decks really. But none of them are flawless by any means, because some of these decks can just pop off at you, and basically no deck has a defense against that. So you basically just have to accept your opponent popping off at you in certain matchups, which is not great. It feels a little bit out of your hands at times, but that is where we're at with the game.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And I feel like, we're going to go into it a lot more with Gdansk and what we're going to be expecting going into our next tournament. But with an equal represented meta, it's kind of then difficult to obviously maybe pick a deck for your next tournament where there's you have Raging Bolt obviously at that 15%, but with everything else teetering around the same rep, it's hard to go, oh well, this is a specifically good pick because we've seen a lot of this or a lot of that. Alex, going into the Gdansk then after Lille, obviously you didn't have the best time at Lille, but going into Gdansk, do you think there's anything that you would possibly change?
I mean, I wouldn't say I didn't have a great time. I still
Oh well, you know what I
finished
mean.
Top
yeah,
2, 5, 6. It could have been better, but you know.
Sure.
That is terrible.
Yeah, sorry about that. Go on.
Yeah, it's not really good enough in this in this anymore. Maybe I should just find other ways to get better placements. In terms of the meta itself, we're going to see how we continue to just evolve, right? So obviously, again, we'll talk about the top 8, even if you start to look beyond the top 8 and the top 16, beyond just the winners and the sort of finalist decks. There's quite a lot of information there. And I think you have to start looking at it as a whole, right? Rather than, yes, we said that these 7 decks are probably the best placed in terms of if you just find one that you are comfortable with, you know, inside out, you generally, that's probably the best bet right now because you know roughly what you're going to be facing. Where you're going to start to see shifts is some of the other decks that actually finished well as well. So top 16 had, if I recall, well, not even just top 16, but top 4 had a Snorlax stall, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then top 16 had maybe a couple more that was kind of hanging around and hovering around that sort of placement. So it's these kind of things that you have to start taking into account as well. So do you then start to think, well, Snorlax had such a pretty good showing based on the numbers that I originally started with and actually converting into day 2. Will you start to maybe tweak lists to make sure you can combat that? You know, some of the Polish players, not just with Bennett, but there's quite a few Polish players who, you know, one of last year's winners also won with Snorlax Stall.
Yeah.
I think there's another cohort of players there that actually enjoy Snorlax as a deck as well. So these little things have to play into your mind a little bit. If you're just going into the top 7 again, I think the similar tweaks that you probably would have made for Lille are stuff that you probably keep again going into the next tournament. But it's just thinking about the extra 5 to 10% of the decks that you might face as well.
Yeah.
At least one round.
I mean, we always speak about it, don't we? There are so many decks that can be played in a meta. You know, Snorlax and prioritising that matchup always seems to be low on people's priority list, and that's exactly where it capitalises. Going on,
Snorlax is still Snorlax is just like one of the hardest decks to top 8 with, but one of the easiest decks to day 2 with. That's what I feel about Snorlax.
Yeah,
it's like you're very unlikely to hit 3 of your bad matchups in 8 rounds to be like out of the tournament, but by the time you've had more rounds, you'll have taken more than 2 losses, probably, or 2 or more losses, I would say.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then going on to day 2, I'll whittle off again the percentages. Lugia Visa actually topping day 2 in terms of rep with 18 decks at 16%. Then Regidrago, Charizard EX at 9%, Snorlax Control then shooting right up to 9%, and then Gardevoir EX and then Raging Bolt, both with 9 decks each. So those were kind of the top players going into day 2. Any surprises there, Joe, from that?
I'm surprised that Dragapult fell as far as it did. I mean, it was just on the back end of the day 1 graphic, but it didn't particularly convert too well. And with other stage 2s in that mix, I thought it would be kind of fine. But as we saw the wave of Lugia, I guess that's one of your harder matchups. And Bolt's not easy either. Even like Bolt had a horrific conversion, but we've been seeing that time and time again, to be honest. So it's not surprising. Also, like it's the easiest deck to play, so you therefore just have a higher percentage of like less experienced players playing this deck anyway. That inflates the numbers essentially. Like there are going to be so many like 0-3 drop bolts and like other weak record bolts I think in the room compared to other players. So it's not too surprising to me. Because like the format complexity is actually quite high right now. I think Bolt and Lugia are your just learn the deck and like just learn how to sequence and you're fine. I think every other of the top decks are like very intricate in how to play them, to be honest. So it doesn't surprise me that Bolt had a pretty poor time of things, but then Lugia sort of thrived, so maybe that's like the best like let's go gambling deck out there right now.
Yeah. And it seemed that Snorlax and Gardevoir obviously were pretty much the winners in deck conversion. Alex,
if I'm not mistaken, I'm just going to touch on it. That Gardevoir EX, I don't think it's just Gardy. If I'm not mistaken, that's actually Bennett.
It's a combination.
Sure.
Yeah, I think there's like four or five Gardevoir, maybe 4 Gardevoir decks, and then the rest were
I saw Mateusz made a tweet about it saying, "Fix this."
yeah. Well,
Get it. We're different decks. They're all the same Pokemon, but the deck is entirely different, which is actually fair. It does play differently.
Yeah,
But
it's just the way that it's an automated system that
it's
unfortunately
Arcanine.
not yet picked up how.
I still hate
how
the fact
best
that
to
there's
differentiate.
unknown V and V star on one of the graphics. That should literally never happen. That can only confuse beginners. It's horrific. That that's there.
I mean,
It's something
we'll
that we-
continue championing for
yeah,
that to be off the charts, I think.
Yeah.
And also, I think I agreed, and this is something I picked up on, but I haven't mentioned as well. But I think I listened to Uncommon Energy, and I picked up on the same thing that Azul put. But at 7%, if you look at the best of the rest,
Yeah,
it
doesn't
looks
have a
like it's larger
continuation.
than like it's more
it's
than
been
Bolt.
throwing me for quite a while because
Well, a pie chart is a way to do it all in one, I suppose, as well, which is also what Chip said. And
I think it's just being able to show very quickly like what the most played decks are, right? Rather than
The
pie
thing-
charts can be sometimes a bit itty and bitty,
yeah,
and that's the problem, right?
I understand why they do it the best of the rest the way they do, because otherwise the graphic will just be like
Yeah.
6 slithers,
Yeah, true,
essentially.
true.
So you're seeing nothing on the screen, like where are the bars, sort of thing.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I feel
I don't
like
know the best solution.
the only
Maybe
other-
they could do the day one page, but then rather than the regional logo in the top right corner, it could be a pie, and then it like goes into like the next graphic goes into that pie to then show the best of the rest.
Or you
Does
could
that
do
make
graphics.
sense?
You could do graphics for the most represented in kind of the top 6, and then in your best of the rest day 2, you could just remove the graphics and just have line to line. Or maybe that's probably
Remove-
that'll show too much
wait.
information.
Well, it has to be on a graphic, right?
You just want to list out. The
Oh no,
best of the rest,
like
right?
remove the card graphics, and then just have it listed.
For the
Just
best of the
all-
rest,
just all-
remove.
Yeah, so-
Just have
Yeah,
just
yeah.
have
Just
name
have
and
it-
percent.
Just have count, yeah.
Yeah, that could work. That could work as
Yeah.
well. I could see that.
Because it's not really that focused on, right? I mean, you want your top decks to look pretty, but the best of the rest you can just go, oh, there's one
They're
Hydrapple
there.
EX, you know.
Hydraffle Rise Up.
yeah,
Yeah.
please
I
rise
mean,
up.
maybe that's Luke's way of getting gouging fire written on the screen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, good
On one of
point.
these-
Yeah,
on
yeah,
one of these.
Immortalised.
yeah.
One day.
'Cause
Otherwise,
Unrecognized.
it's
Yeah.
always forgotten.
He's never on the graphic. You hate to see it.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Mm.
And then of course, best of the rest day 2, we got Terrapagos then keeping its same percentage at 7% with 8 decks going into day 2. Dragapult EX, big drop off as you said, Joe, going into day 2 with only 6, and then Lost Box, Origin Form Palkia V-Star with sorry, I don't know why I said the full name, but with Desnoir.
You've read it word
and then,
for word.
Yeah.
That also had an equally poor drop off. It
did,
had
yeah.
a worse drop off,
Yeah.
right, than Pult,
Yeah,
which
way
again
worse.
just shows that it's like hard to play. I think, but also like it's quite weak into Lugia. I think generally. So that's also something to bear in mind.
And then,
I think what's actually interesting is something that we don't really look at. It's just like the conversion of the deck itself. So like, there's 195 Raging Bolt, right? And I think it just looking at it, it's like 9 Raging Bolts that made it in day 2. That's 4% of Raging Bolts actually made it in, right?
Terrible conversion. Yeah.
So it's like another spin on similar data, which is.
I
kind
know
of cool
that
to look at.
PTG Legends did it for a bit, but I think they've been behind on a few tournaments the last time I checked.
Fair.
But they do those stats, and it's actually a great thing to just add for real context of
Yeah.
the percentage. I'm
I
actually
guess.
going to quickly look and see if they have it.
You know, I've been messaging you about some data recently, Joe. So these little things I'm actually kind of like really interested in. Like Lost
Yeah.
Zone Box, like 12% or so of the 44.
you know, what's
Actually,
the-
like
you know what's the
thinking
meme
about that now,
it?
that's a much more meaningful stat. Like giving us a day 2
Please.
conversion stat is so
Thank
much better than
you.
just a day 2 deck stat. to
Oh
be
yes,
honest.
I've got Omnipoke on my side.
Why would you
Yeah.
message?
That's
yeah,
actually
you
a
messaging
far
him, not me.
more-
That's my biggest concern.
That's a far more important metric of
So-
what was the deck for the tournament. I agree, Alex.
Right?
This is what.
Thank
So
you.
I did it for TCG Legends for a couple of videos, but they're like behind on 6 events. I don't know what's
So,
going
yeah,
on there.
it was just something I was just re-looking at. I was just rehashing some numbers and looking at some things for myself because I found it quite interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, that's really cool. I haven't seen the actual number of how many Snorlax were actually in the whole 1311.
Oh, and the whole
Right.
time, yeah.
So
to
that's
calc-
that we don't have.
To calculate its actual conversion rate, specifically.
Yeah.
Well,
Because it
conversion
wasn't
for
on
the
the-
deck itself. Yeah.
For everything that's
Rather
on the
than
day
what it
1
made.
graphics, you can make the calc, right? As long as they're
Yeah.
on day 1 and day 2. But for Snorlax, you don't know.
No.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
You just know it's
so
less than
it's-
38. That's all you know. So it's at least whatever percent.
Like-
But yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know, just like 20 something percent roughly. So it's actually like pretty. It's a pretty cool way of looking at how well a deck does into this field of 13 and 11, 1,311 players. But yeah, sorry, I digress.
No, it's fine. You can
Interesting
interrupt me
things.
whenever you want. And then
Yeah,
the bottom of the
anytime.
graphic, best of the rest graphic. Then the last two is Iron Thorns and Gold Dango EX. The
Huge.
people who play that, it's like a cult following. I think the people, it's the same people over and over again. I'm pretty confident.
Dengo.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
That's the same with Luke and Rage and Gouging
It's
Fire, right?
two different players, I think. It's not Yellow this time.
Oh really?
It's
Yeah.
not Yella.
I didn't check.
I saw Yella end of day one, and he just fell short as well, similar to me, I think. But yeah, you've got those players who just stick with the try and test. And those two players who played Golden Go might have been
They are from the
Yeah.
Netherlands, so they might be mates of
True.
Yellow.
true Dengo players as well. But like
Yeah,
I said, it's like
believers.
people playing Gouging Fire. You know, he knows it inside out. There's that slight surprise
Person,
factor
not
of,
people. Person.
well, it's winning tournaments in Asia. Thank
It
you
is
very much.
winning already. Yeah.
It is weird, yeah.
God bless.
And then with one with count of one going into day two, Gouging Fire, of course, as we spoke about earlier, Luke Kirkham, Roaring Moon,
Roaring Moon.
Roaring Moon EX, and then Ancient Box coming into day two as well. Pidgeot Control wasn't shown on the graphic, nor was Cloth, but they had two decks each going into day two as well, which is pretty interesting. We spoke about Cloth earlier, didn't we?
Wait, hang on. That's Meta Manip. They put the two Goldengo on there, but not all the others that made
Oh.
two.
Yeah.
What is this Manip from TPCI?
I do wonder what
What
makes
the
it pick
heck?
that. What makes it automatic to pick that over
So
the other
Pidgeot,
one
Miraidon,
that's
Clorf, and I'm surprised because I thought like if there's anyone in the back room, it's Ross shouting for Clorf to be on the graphic just so that he can pop off.
So because they Cloth made it.
Yeah.
No, yeah, Cloth had two, and I was just saying that we spoke about Cloth earlier about our justification to put it on the tier list, our last tier list video, and it's been doing bits, hasn't it, in the format? I think people actually underappreciate it. I think it's a very good single prize deck going into this match.
we're going
I mean,
there.
I,
are we,
I
Rab?
think it's
We're still
pretty
talking about
bad,
this.
but it can accumulate
it's,
wins.
it's okay. It's okay. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's
It
bad.
did top 4 regional. It did top 4 in Joinville.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad. I think it's okay.
No,
It's
it's
an
It's
okay.
a tiered.
it's
It's a
fine
tiered deck. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a deck that exists. It's,
Catch
Yeah.
us next time when we re-review our list.
and I hope the listeners, don't listen to Joe. If you want to play it, play Cloth, all right? If you
I
wanna
didn't
play
say
it.
don't play it. I said it's a deck that exists.
yeah.
Hey, listen, I was the one who was saying that Clorf had to be on the tier list. I'm
Wait, that
Clorf's
was me.
biggest defender, so
was
don't
me.
Nah,
start this.
Joe
don't
wants
make
it
me
on
the
tier
bad
list so
guy.
he can trash it.
I have
Yeah.
always been appreciating Cloth. Always.
Yeah, of course you have.
I've always said it'll top 4 one day.
Can't
and it
believe
did,
you
so-
turned the tables on me like that. After all I've done for Clorf.
But yeah, going into day 2, then we'll just go through the results. I'm hoping I'm showing it. Yeah, I am. Of course, James Cox coming home with the win. Really consistent player. I was really happy to see him win actually, because of course he's been knocking on the door for a while in these big tournaments. So it's good to see him get the win. It's well deserved. But then going into top 8, then we did have, I would say, some fair representation. However, I think Regidrago and Lugia did the majority of it. Of course, 3 Regidrago, 2 Lugia V-Star.
4 Regidrago, top 9.
It was top 9.
I was
It
top
was
9.
in there.
Okay, I still got to say that. And then 1 Raging Bolt, 1 Dragapult, and then 1 Snorlax. So Regidrago doing bits. I think just because of how varied the meta was. Of course, Regidrago having those different utility Pokemon it can utilize. I think probably did bits going into this tournament. Hence its high conversion and how well it did going into the top 9. But any surprises there then, Alex, going into top cut?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd call it surprises. There was a lot of very good players who re-picked up or picked up Drago for this tournament. Obviously, James alongside his that testing group of Kaiwen, who went on, I think, was he unbeaten throughout Swiss? I couldn't remember, but he went in as top seed and fell to that mirror match in top 8, I believe. But there's a lot of very, very good players who've picked up that deck. Alberto Conti, top 4. There's Miloslav, who top 32 as well. Because I know him and Andre have been sort of championing the Regidrago decks for a while as well. So no surprises from that perspective. It was just finding the right maybe card counts, tech counts that might play better into the meta. Using things like Jamming Tower against those Bravery Charm, Raging Bolts, which everyone's sort of now picked up on. That's probably the best way right now, at least, or the based on last time, it was the best way to play it. And it's just kind of fiending on that at the moment, to be honest. The biggest surprise for me was that Terrapagos Dust Noir had a poor, not really a poor, I think it stuck around.
Its conversion was about usual.
But then its best finish was just the one in top 32 of Nico Alaba.
Nico definitely had a chance to make cut as well, right? He had the game against James where his Noctowl wasn't functioning as planned. Or was it his Noctowl? No, it was not finding a Noctowl from a Rotom.
I think there was a couple of things that I think
he acknowledges that. But yeah,
if you watch that stream game, I think he actually flipped over like the top card of his deck as well at some point.
Nico.
I don't know what happened.
But that could have been another very good Terrapagos result. This could be a completely different top 8 just based on that game alone, right? Yeah. But again, Terrapagos, it's a very high skill ceiling deck. Terrapagos, I think. And there are times where you're just like a piece away from combo, and then your turn goes from like, I've won this turn and there's nothing my opponent can do about it, to like, well, I guess I'm panic Iono Blood Mooning and I can very much lose from here. I feel like there are still those moments, and that's hanging by a thread sometimes.
I mean, what's your view, Ben? You as a viewer or catching up with the stream and the stream games?
I mean, the only thing that I was remotely surprised about was the Dragapult coming second. I think I was surprised to see it go that far, considering how poorly it did day 1. Clement Courbois, and I'm hoping I'm saying that right. I think this is the first deck.
I think you're meant to pronounce the S, apparently.
Courbois.
I think it's more close to that, because I'm pretty sure Stefan mentioned it.
Stefan did say something.
Okay, that's fine. But I think this is the first deck that we can really review. When I first saw this list, I thought it was pretty standard, really, apart from maybe say Horlucha and the devolution. Very much, I think, like you said, Alex, this is where getting into top 8, getting into the depths of day 2, where single card counts really matter, going into your specific matchups. But were there any interests from either of you?
It goes against the wave of Dust Noir Pulse, right, which has been the last couple of weeks. But also, like, League headquarters isn't super common. The 3 count of Counts Catchers also not really that common. Vacuum is like an obvious include from the previous week, but still not something we always see. So it is cute deck building tweaks. Like HQ respects Bolt, as does the Vacuum.
I mean,
and even Counts Catcher to an extent.
Yeah, the deck that Clement ended up obviously piloting, and obviously to a fantastic finish. And I think it was called out a couple of times, either on stream or on the Twitterverse, about how he was making really cool, unique plays of kind of maintaining his opponent's board state, but with a lot of damage counters, so he can take multiple prize turns. And that, again, it's you go down that route because you play a heavy counter catcher type list. So you're not wanting to take those prizes until you want to, and then you're just kind of forcing your opponent into awkward positions. So the deck's built to do that. And that's a great way of another way of showcasing how Dragapult could be played, which was really cool. But yeah, it's a very unique take on.
Well, it's very similar to early City League Japanese Dragapults actually, until like this was their standard 60 essentially. I think apart from like exactly Vacuum, and then the Dust Noir wave came in. But yeah, showing that this can still be a powerful way to do things is pretty cool to see, to be fair.
Yeah. I
don't actually know which one I'd prefer to play, to be honest.
I think I'm
back and forth. I think I like Pidgeot enough to play it, just for games I go first, so that I can just have dominant board positions. But I don't know if I want to commit a 2-2. And I probably definitely still want to play Dust Noir as well.
I think I still struggle, and this may be just my mindset, and I haven't maybe put enough time into Dust Noir decks in general, but I still struggle with I'm going to give my opponent an advantage to put damage counters down.
A lot of people do
it's quite a scary feeling to know that I'm pushing you closer to your win condition.
I have to lose in order to win, kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's like it's a weird.
It's definitely a different mindset.
The biggest thing that's awkward is that you just know that like a window can shut, and then you're like, well, these are all dead cards now. Thanks. Yeah.
I think the thing why I said it was pretty standard was because the majority of this that I've seen from the Pidgeot from Japan are playing into, like you said, this heavy kind of lose first to win, the heavy counter catcher, and I think you need that obviously in order to have that slight aggressive turns in the absence of Dust Noir. So it was.
It's literally just like I'll buy a turn at
yeah.
some point list. That's really what it's trying to do, right? It's like at some point I'll choose a turn.
I think it's just interesting in this meta now, considering how people have obviously seen the Dragapult, the Dust Noir orientated lists and gone, you know what, I'm just not gonna play that way. I'm gonna stick with the Pidgeot, play to what I feel is correct.
Yeah, I feel like it's very like akin to, you remember when we had was it like what was the Mewtwo, not Mega Mewtwo, but the 4 cards Mewtwo. There was like a
Mewtwo V Union.
count. Yeah, the V Union, which from the Japan list where they were like going very far behind and then causing a checkmate position with, I think there was like a
V Union deck or whatever. It was. 20 damage
Guardian,
spread,
Luxray and stuff.
Yeah. So it's like kind of, it's not something that I've ever really seen from our shores. I guess because obviously they get early access to these things anyway. But it always like stems and takes a lot of innovation from that to bring it into our meta game, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise, I don't think there was too big of a changes in terms of what we had expected to see.
Yeah.
I think top 16 gouging is probably the most interesting deck here.
Yeah, right? I was about to get into
Sanders.
Sanders Rotomless Lax is great.
I really like that list. I've actually got it sleeved up already. I think it's really cool.
Already had the box orders actually, so
I did.
I knew you would.
I have 4 reverse hollow. I was like, I'm just waiting for someone to make this good. I'm not going to do it.
I'm kind of hoping. I'm kind of hoping Sanders still using that lucky helmet that I helped source from him.
Was it the old one or the new one?
It was whatever we found in the box. He was just like, I need lucky helmets.
I think it's Ancient Origins, the old one.
I think it was NAIC, and I was just like trying to look for these pieces for him.
Ancient Origins lucky helmet. I mean, it's great list. Yeah.
So other than that, then obviously you got Luke's. We've already mentioned it multiple times. Luke deserves plenty of plaudits with gouging fire. In all honesty,
I've been laughing so much because Luke is like, he's getting excited that people are doing videos about his deck list, and then he's fuming that they're playing it all abysmally, all making cuts that he's like, you cannot cut that card. It changes every matchup. Oh, it's really making me laugh so much.
It's because Luke is a bit of a perfectionist with the list, isn't he? He will, especially testing with him. He will meticulously go, this card needs to change to this specific card for this reason. And we'll have that sort of thought process, which
but people looking at it for the first time have no idea what's going on.
No, exactly.
And that's also a big plus when he's sat down across his opponents as well.
Yeah.
So honestly, like, not to take away anything from doing this is one of the perks of playing Rogue just generally, is that the amount of times I've heard Luke say, like, they thought they won, but I had this combination of cards that they weren't expecting and their jaw drops or whatever. Like, that's a conversation we had many a time over both the last couple of weekends of like, they thought they were out of range, but I could just Monkey Dory and Kieran, and that was game.
I honestly, like, it's one of those things, and the reason why I've really enjoyed playing Palkia Knocked Out as well, because no one realizes what you can in the list that we've been playing, Thornton into and or use things like Crispin or Trumpet energy switches to get a second Greninja out of nowhere. It's like these little things that no one really bats an eyelid about, and they're just like, oh yeah, I'm just taking knockouts, I'm KOing your Palkia, it's gone, it's not coming back. All of a sudden the V-Star's staring down at their face. But I imagine with Luke's perspective, it's even less so because no one's playing Gouging Fire, right?
Right.
No
you,
one's
you might,
seeing
you
it.
might.
Oh, Fox
You
V.
never know. I think you will probably see an uptick in people playing it.
Possibly now. Yeah, possibly.
Because
maybe now.
It's not just one good result he's had, is it? It's a couple now, and I think people
don't forget those Asia tournaments where they're taking it down.
Yeah, Gouging's got wins before.
Yeah, it's doing bits, isn't it? But yeah, you're right. I think it's got the element of surprise. Big chunky, big basic Pokemon doing a ton of damage, and it's got the kind of cute plays around it, which will always give it its plus. I'm not going to pretend to know its matchups in terms of what you do, but yeah, it's good to see Luke obviously coming home with a great result once again. But going into the rest of the top 16, this is where the real diversity kicks in. This is where you start seeing those Gardevoir Bannettes, as well as some of your Palkia V-Star Decimars as well.
So it had poor conversion, but still gravitating to the top for a couple of players, and obviously even off again, championing it.
Yeah.
Saw him on stream a couple times, I think. Always cool to watch him play the deck as someone who's been on it very early.
Yeah, no. Obviously with the Lost Box coming into top 32 as well, which is really good there considering how low represented it was, and of course the Roaring Moon actually streaming its way up to top 32. Just that one deck making it all the way to top 32. Nikki Paradise, so well done to yourself. And then of course you go into the rest of it as well. Top 64, top 128. You got your Iron Thorns, the rest of the Snorlax clan. But yeah, no.
There was so much Lugia in day 2. The Snorlax clan probably weren't doing so well.
It was either you did top 32 because there was 2 in top one in top 8 or top 4. Well,
Sander,
one in top 16, one in top 32, and then the other like half of them were in like towards the bottom half.
Yeah. Well, Sander inexplicably beat one of the Lugias that he faced, and he couldn't even explain how. So yeah.
I think with Snorlax, it's always been the mindset. For me anyway, of just take the loss to Lugia. Just take the loss.
We've said it loads of times, right?
Otherwise, you have to play the whole Templar Sinnoh Yakimo package, and I just don't have the Yakimo package, and I just
Sander
don't
did play
have
the
time for it. I don't have patience for it.
I don't have the time for it, to be honest. I'll just say, oh, I lost straight away.
I was just having a get a bagel, to be honest. I don't know.
I was just having a quick look at a few cards to see what's gained a new Limitless page.
Because from Sander.
Choi.
Funnily enough, a lot of the ones that I thought would, he's already played before, or someone else has already played before. But yeah,
all right, so Boxed Order has had 3 places. One of them was in Baxcalibur, and I didn't realise it was played by Jared Grimes. But I also never realised it was once in a Lugia Archeops in LA.
Incredible.
That's genius. Getting it turn 1, that's busted. What?
Turn 1, box it up.
Turn 1 box.
This is
it played 3 copies in the Lugia. Yeah. 3 copies.
Do we want to go through Santa's list? Let's go through it. Go on.
Well, I mean, the idea is that you don't give your opponent any reprieve from Rotom, like giving them boss as essentially switch outs. And I guess there are situations against certain aggressive archetypes that Rotom is knocked out after 1 use, and you're like, well, I can't really put this down, and my draw engine stinks. So instead, just have shoes, boxes, and just more draw supporters in the deck. Don't know why specifically it's Choi, Worker, Chorus, these sorts of cards. I know what it does, Alex, but it's like...
It increases your
knowledge is power.
It increases
yeah, but why is it a Worker over a second Choi and all this other stuff? Like, why Grusha specifically?
Well, Choi increases your odds of hitting Flute and Erica, right?
Yes, I'm not saying I don't understand why. How do I?
Come on, Joe.
You're talking to me like it's Professor's research. It's still bloody Choi, all right?
It increases your odds so much that you know.
Yeah, great. I guess his logic is that because you play 4 gear, that you want the best one at the right time, that it's worth playing enough different ones. Like there are situations where one is objectively better than the other in different spots.
Right.
And because you play Power Pad anyway.
I've got the list.
We can just go for
I've got the list.
Nah, it's pretty cool. I do enjoy
Lucky
it.
Helmet, man. He's
No,
played
you need the Lucky Helmet because the thing
he's played Lucky Helmet at a few events, right? He must have played this at a few events. All I can see is it with Gyarados.
No.
Lucky Helmet's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah,
Because
he-
if they
I mean,
INO
that
you
was
after a
in-
box door,
I've definitely sourced him Lucky
Christmas
Helmet
cards.
before, but maybe it just didn't make the list that he ended up playing. Because
He definitely played at NAIC, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
why, because that's where I fished it out for him.
I don't know
and
how
that's
he
when
was,
I spent a bit of time talking about it, and I was just like, yes, please, play Lucky Helmet. I miss Lucky Helmet.
I don't know how he beat
playing
Lugia
Gyarados.
with one Yakumo, but if he says he didn't know, then that
He
just says
just
it all.
no,
he
he said
just
it. He said it was inexplicable how he won anyway.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, great list. Three Nashball.
It terrifies me. Like, it's obviously going to be more difficult for people to play this approach than just having Rotom, because there's inherently so much more decision making with boxed order and whatnot. But it does terrify me that a lot of these decks rely on the boss reprieve as like a pseudo switching card and a way to take 2 against this deck. That you can be like, okay, I can take 2 here, I can get for a couple Snorlax with my only few remaining switch outs, and then I have this attacker for Mimikyu to be my 6. Now it's like, how am I taking 6 against this? Like, I literally cannot beat this many gusts.
It makes the prize map horrendous for your opponent. If you can manage to just get your setup, get your 4 Snorlax down, it's and of course 2 Night Stretcher, you got your Silene, got your Team Yelster. I think it's brilliant. Getting, like you said, getting through 6 of them. Get through 4 in Rotom, that's fine. Boss switch.
Yeah, like some decks can walk that tightrope with just playing normal counts of generic cards and just about squeak it sometimes. But this list is like, as long as this 60 sets up, it's so much harder for the decks that play like the boss, the 2 switch outs, and the Cologne. Like, I just don't think you get there anymore. Like things like Drago can conceivably get there against Rotom builds of Lax, but I don't think they get there against this 60.
No. And of course, you still have that added element of oh well, I just didn't tech for this matchup, didn't tech for Snorlax because I.
Oh yeah, you'll still have your
tech for the
easy
other 5
breezy
matchups
wins.
in the room.
Yeah, like it doesn't matter what you're boxed ordering against in some of the matchups. Like, do whatever you want at that point.
Box order against Raging Bolt, so good. You know you're keeping those cards. It's brilliant. Yeah, no other. Of course, we went through the lists already that are going into that went into top day 2. Sorry, I've just malfunctioned for a bit.
I think that's most of the interesting decks, right?
Well, Bolly took Miraidon into day 2. He only won. I'm pretty sure I thought that was.
Was he playing any? He normally
sticker.
plays wonky lists. He's playing an Area 0 build.
He did not play.
Did he play Secret Box in it?
He didn't play.
Yeah,
Energy
he has the
sticker.
box.
He does have it.
Yeah.
Does have Secret Box. Yeah. Playing across the Mewtwo.
Did he just run it
Area
back
Zero
from?
package.
Did he run it back from Dortmund?
I will
This
check.
is quite a reserved 60 from Bolly. There's
He's been in his ear.
nothing mental here, actually.
It doesn't. Maybe some slight changes, just on first.
Very few.
First look,
Yeah.
it doesn't look like there's many, but there might be. 65th and then 76th, so just one place down. But,
Can't stop, won't stop.
Good result again from Bolly. Couple of Pidgeot controls in there as well. Clorf, Alex Northy, he was on stream as well. With the Clorf. I like I said before, I'm going to say it again. I really respect Clorf going into this. I think it's okay. I think it's actually really good to play.
What
Is this your
matchups
new
you want to
Roaring
play as
Moon deck?
Claw?
Well, you want you Raging Bolt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
bong, and there it is.
Yeah, well, you don't.
I
Maybe
was still waiting
Goldengo.
to see if Ben would get that.
Goldengo. Yeah.
You want to hit Goldengo?
Yeah.
Do you?
I don't
I
know.
don't even know.
I don't know.
You probably do want to hit Goldengo. Goldengo's
I don't
probably a
know.
good one for you.
I don't know. Maybe Alex North, he could tell us. Yeah. Okay. Well, that was our.
You're not terrible
Go on.
into V-Star matchups, I suppose. That's
Yeah.
No, yeah.
You can handle V-Stars just
You can
about.
handle the V-Stars. You still play the Electrode, right? For
You do play
your Zars.
one copy of Electrode. But this
One.
list doesn't have the mods that you need, right? You normally have to play Cabalion or super effective glasses for the Electrode anyway.
Are you also normally okay into Snorlax? Because I feel like you usually play quite a lot of outs. Or
This
have
plays a
to.
decent amount of outs. It's got the 3 cart, the 1 jet, so that's a good amount of outs.
But can you knock out 6?
That's the real problem.
That's the question now.
No.
Can you knock out 6? Okay, well, that was our Lille review. I'm hoping that provided great insight and knowledge and understanding of the game from our two experts.
Excuse you. We don't have
Only
we don't
two.
ever have
There's only one expert in this
There's
call.
only one.
Official.
That's you.
That's official, actually. That's official. I'll bring up the.
We're just punters, mate.
I'll bring up the credits.
You're gonna bring a credit roll.
Yeah. So yeah, going into Gdansk then, we touched upon it earlier, of course, how we think the legal meta may affect Gdansk, even though I think everything was kind of equaled in representation, which makes it ultimately harder for players to actually pick a deck. Now, Joe, if you were to play Gdansk in a couple of weeks, I think it's actually next week, isn't it? Or the week after?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Week and a half.
Wow.
Yeah.
Time flies. When you're having kids, time flies. So going into the meta for Gdansk, how do we feel from the first impressions of this tournament?
Well, I mean, Reggie Drago's a scary deck to have won, right? Because it's versatile, quite consistent at what it wants to do. So it's like the only really way to target is to play Lugia or Bolt, I think, in terms of like a targeting perspective. But like you said, because everything's around that 10% mark, I would expect, like, even because Reggie Drago won, I don't think it's going to go way above like 10%, like maybe highest end 12% of play, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't put me off any deck that I'd learned like throughout this format, so I'm going to be sticking to probably Fan Rotom and Noctowl, and it's either Turtle or Palkia, just because they're still versatile, to be fair.
Yeah, fair enough. What about you, Alex?
Yeah. Likewise, I think I tried to say it a little bit earlier as well, where I would stick with whatever I've been playing the most with. I mean, there's general game plans into pretty much, well, at least you would like to think if you're testing, you'd probably have a rough game plan into most of these top 7 decks, and then some of the other sort of fillers as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the percentages will change drastically too much. I still think Bolt will probably still be the most played deck.
Yeah.
It may drop off from 15 to like 13 or 14. But I still anticipate there to still be quite a decent amount because, you know, Drago won as well. There's ways that you still take a decent matchup into it. Lugia popping off probably like will at least hang around as second or third most played deck, and then it's down to whatever the other deck believers are in terms of the rest kind of all fitting around that. Yeah. 8 to 10%.
You're both right. I think the only influences that would really impact your choices, of course, the representation of Rage and Bolt being 15%, but also Rage and Drago is a difficult one, isn't it? Because it kind of hits all parties because it is a toolbox approach. It's quite difficult to put your finger on, apart from going, you know, Raging Bolt, which is an obvious counter.
I guess I would expect.
Myself, but I don't know.
I don't think Snorlax is terrible. Again, you're kind of going in with I have the decks I beat, I have the decks I don't beat.
Yeah.
Let's just roll the dice. We will see a downtick in Lost Zone box, I guess. I mean, we saw an uptick slightly. Yeah, well, we saw an uptick, I think, in my opinion, off the back of Michael Davidson's second place. But then with Drago doing well and you know, and also going up in sort of play, at least to around the 10%. You know, Lost Zone box doesn't feel great right now.
Yeah. That's what we said, right? Michael picked the right weekend, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very specific meta game to pick Lost Box, so I could definitely see that going down. Like you said, horrible conversion rate. Actually, no. Was it really? Was it really a horrible conversion rate?
It wasn't.
Lost Box had good conversion.
44 decks in
like 12%.
day one.
So it's not bad at all.
6 of them day 2. Yeah, I mean, Lost Box is a good deck. It's just harder to win the tournament than it would be. Like it's just another dodge deck, right? You know that your matchup is so poor. On one of the stream games, they showed Drago into Lost Box, and it's just not close. It's just not close. I don't like. Why is that a game they picked? Is another question, but it's we know it's not close, right? And it feels bad. It's like a Snorlax facing a Lugia. It's so low win.
Question for you both, since you both caught up with the stream or watched it. Was there any notable stream games that was actually worth watching back?
I really enjoyed the final.
Anything that like blew me away. The final was weird because
I thought the final was interesting.
Clement didn't draw well at any point in the entire final, which is like so Pokemon-y. But yeah, it depends what you like watching, really.
Yeah.
There wasn't any like major pop-off moments, I don't think, but there was some intricate play in there from a few players.
Yeah, I agree. I'd follow up with that. It was good to see Bert back as well, actually. I enjoyed watching
Bert's always a fun one to watch.
Yeah, great player. It's good to see him.
I think underrated
see him
in
playing
Europe.
again. Yeah. And I was
Took
going
a year off because he didn't like the format.
What a guy.
What a guy. Strong.
He likes this one. That's even. What does that say?
That's even more bizarre.
What does that say? I don't know.
And now he's back.
What does that tell you?
Yeah, no, fair enough. Actually, Alex, we didn't touch upon the tournament structure. Were there any weird stories? Any influences from Louisville? Were there any gentlemen's agreements round one?
No, I mean it's the same
No?
same old from what we expected, right? Everyone knows the situation now. We know we weren't close to the next threshold, so we wouldn't be having that problem.
Yeah.
In reality, well, we shouldn't get that problem.
So it's not a problem then. Let's just keep it the same.
It's not that it's not a problem. It was just that particular tournament was an anomaly, and it may happen again where there's capped attendance for some tournaments at just below the threshold, for example. But for this one in Lille particularly, I think there was a very low percentage something like that could have happened.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Joe?
I mean, but yeah, in terms of, I did see a couple people trying gentlemen's, and maybe there was some language barriers. There was some difficulty.
That's the worst. Language barriers are the worst. Trying a gentleman's agreement.
It was just unfortunate. I'm pretty sure I was sat beside one, and at one point one of them looked at me and was like, "You heard us say you would be a gentleman," and I'm like, "This is not my problem." And I walked up. I stood up like this, hands up, and walked off. And I was like, "That's not part of the game." You can't.
Joe, you laughed there at me saying keep it the same. Thoughts?
I mean, I wasn't there, so I can't really comment on it. To be honest with you, it's exactly what we said last week, right?
Yeah.
It's only going to happen on certain thresholds of players where it's going to feel absolutely terrible. Outside of the fact that we're just playing 2 less rounds for no reason.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And remember, less Pokemon equals bad.
Can we just get that on a T-shirt, please?
That's what I remember. Get that on a plate.
You're gonna wear that if Ben gets you a T-shirt, Joe.
Yeah.
CCG development team. Less Pokemon equals bad.
Question mark.
Question mark. Philosophy. Yeah. So that's the hour up. I guess we can give a little sneak peek into what we're going to be presenting next week. We're going to be doing a tier list. So get your views in on that. Definitely views up. Views up this time, not down.
Number big.
That's number big. Yeah, exactly. The viewers up. Get the.
I guess it's probably quite relevant, right? Because
there is an IC coming up.
Exactly, I was about to say, and I guess we're now at a stage where we're at this maturer part of the format with 2 tournaments. Well, from our side at least. Is there any other tournaments coming up?
There's.
I think they do, right?
I think there's Buenos Aires.
Yeah, nothing in the US and.
Oh, nothing in the US.
And
no.
the region, right?
They can already start looking at Sacramento,
LAIC
which is new format.
Yeah, special event.
LAIC.
Or LAIC, yeah.
Special event Buenos Aires, and then LAIC 15th of November. That's so close now. But yeah, I think it'd be good, obviously, to do a. What? Why are you laughing? Did you say 15th of November?
That's so close now.
It is.
No,
it is close. Usually, I have a tendency to just repeat what people say, but yeah.
Because you're not listening mostly.
In one ear, out the other. No, we'll do
I guess they've announced some of the information around that, right? They have the schedule for LAIC, so these things are coming up thick and fast now.
Yeah.
I think they had this everyone's who's streaming, which is going to be pretty cool.
We'll do
Freya from our side is obviously going to LAIC, which is really cool, obviously because she's able to speak Portuguese as well.
Yeah,
makes conversing a lot easier.
Yeah, certainly does.
So lots to look forward to, I think.
Yeah, very good. No, we'll do a tier list comparison as well. I think that's
how right were we all along?
We were always right. I was always right.
The Cloth rating will shock you.
I'll go ahead. So that'll be the thumbnail. Me
Is that going up in a tier list?
Cloth
Cloth
S?
up? Is Cloth winning?
Stocks up for Cloth.
Get your cards now.
So
Yeah.
just very quickly, I asked last time that
Go on.
will Snorlax win an event this season? Is this top 4 as close as
Ooh, it got very close, didn't it?
I think
Almost
it's
egg
not-
on my face a week later.
I think it's still capable
Unbelievable.
of winning a regional.
It
Why
is
not?
capable. It is capable.
I know you'll champion it to the death of it, and Joe was like no, but it was just kind of
What,
interesting
Joe?
to see
Joe
how close it got.
Joe's
honestly-
violently against.
I think
pretty
it's
sure he
more
will.
likely to if you play a Sander 60 now, because I think there's less trickling through the cracks. Like you just have more I win matchups with Sanders list. I think, rather than like they came out the gates firing, they immediately had boss knockout Rotom, and I just couldn't do anything. I think there's less of that with Sanders 60, so I think it's more likely to win an event now because it is exactly dodge Lugia.
Is there a risk of playing Pokestop in that build?
You definitely can play Pokestop, but I think the idea is all the supporters are like you would have to change the list to be like very Pokestop heavy
Sorry, all the ideas
and
are just
Palpad heavy.
All the
all
ideas.
the ideas are just
Ben's brain is
just
exploding.
struggling.
You could quad Night Stretcher, quad Pokestop, quad or like 2 or 3, like probably 3 Palpad.
There was a list
I think the
a long
main
time
thing
ago
is
that
though,
did a
like you
similar
need to
thing.
draw into the supporters, right? That's the thing.
There was a very similar Snorlax list that had a similar approach. I think it was at Liverpool, not last
A
year, the year
Pokestop
before.
Snorlax.
A Pokestop Snorlax, and I think that was the first one I've seen, and I thought that was just.
I
not
guess the
way to go.
tools are also like too integral, so
Yeah.
you can't. It's weird. You don't want to spin the stop early for consistency. You would want to do it post Arven to affin the tools to then do it. So if it's not an early game consistency card, what's the point in it?
Oh, it's just fun.
Good point.
Why not, instead of drawing 3 cards with Rotom, let's just spin them and see if we get
Spin
them
it.
into our hands or not.
I suppose you could play like
Box order,
Rosan's
yes.
backup or something. You could play Pokestop and then have like Rosan's backup, but that's a turn off a supporter, which is kind of rough for the stat sometimes.
Boxed order into Gear into Arven.
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I really need a supporter here. I have to hit Pokegear from my Pokestop. And then I have to hit a supporter that I want from this Pokegear.
Oh, thank God it's Grusha.
It's Troy. Yes.
Yes.
Very good.
I hit it. I hit it big.
Very good. So what were we up to on the weekend? Football obviously returned, actually. I went through some fantasy football dilemmas. I had to take a 4-pointer to get Saka out.
Did you take a 4-pointer?
I did. I had to go Saka and Gabriel out. I'm sick of Arsenal defenders now.
Oh, you've done it for this week.
Yeah,
Coming up.
I'm sick of them.
One
So
bad result, they had a red card, and I'm sick of it.
they've
I'm the one who got the
conceded-
minus
they
3 from
conceded-
Saliba.
They
So
conceded 3 games in a row, and that
Oh,
was
God.
usually that was their strong point apparently. So these out, and I
Liars.
went for Ethan Pinnock instead.
who scored?
I went for Ethan Pinnock because Brentford had a
for
good,
this week.
good couple of
Oh,
good
for
couple of
this week.
results.
He hasn't. Yeah, he didn't pick him up.
I thought he
was-
high rolled Pinner.
No.
Nah, Ben got about 20 points last week.
No. Yeah, I got 28 points.
I swear you've fallen down.
I've gone. I think I'm third. I think something like that.
I'm in the
Third,
bin
fourth.
anyway.
Yeah.
My week was
But
pointless.
I got Palmer.
I finally
Uh,
wild carded.
I got Chili. I got Chippy Chips in. So
Who?
Cole
Chippy
Palmer.
chips.
Chippy Chips.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got
yes,
25
of course.
points, Ben. That's actually embarrassing, isn't it?
How many did you get?
44.
Oh, that's outrageously
insane.
good.
Anyway, yeah. I'm going to Chelsea on Sunday. That's what I'm doing. This
Oh, very
weekend.
good.
Yeah.
Who are they playing now?
Chelsea Newcastle.
Very good. Alex, what are you doing?
I am not doing anything. I'm having a weekend off. I'll probably be in IKEA or something. catch me in my
Look forward to
second home.
that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Very good. Well, we got
Benjamin, baby.
We got Motherwell on Sunday, so I'm
Okay.
sitting
Football
in
is
front,
it?
sit-
That's the big thing that I'm looking out for.
sitting in front of the telly just watching that. I could have gone to Lille. I could have gone to Lille. Maybe selfish
Can
already.
you tell Harriet that
Yeah.
4 hours into labour?
Yeah. Could have gone to Lille.
Are you finding your food must be frozen by now, by the way.
Yeah, you should go eat your
It's
your
on the windowsill.
scrumptious
It's
dinner.
by there.
Yeah.
I just left it. No, I did it because Joe was like, "I'm in a mood now because we got to record." So I gotta.
Well, yeah,
Well,
we've got
we've
7 minutes
got more
left.
to do. We've got a meeting to get to.
What Joe wants, Joe gets.
Busy
We've
people.
got business.
Business official. Right.
All right, Ben, close
Okay.
it off. Come on.
No problem. Okay, well, thank you if you've listened to all of this ramble. Like I said before, I hope you've gained something from listening to this podcast and this episode. And stay tuned for more because we got so much more content to come. We're talking tier lists. We're
Jesus,
talking.
what's going on, is it?
We're talking insight into the meta. We're talking just rambling about fantasy football. Possibly
And
kids
more.
kids coming. Possibly, perhaps. It's all
Yeah.
it's all happening. It's a reality show. This. Okay.
That would be a good app, wouldn't
That would be.
it? They just walk in.
Yeah.
We all bring our babies to it.
We should do live one. Should we do
Joe's
it?
there cradling Tim.
You know what I looked up on Google most interesting things you can do on your podcast, and one of them was a Guinness World Book record.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's your research for this week. Next week.
I was saying, where was I saying this? But was it on the pod? I can't remember. Yeah, it
that
was on
you
the
could-
pod
you
that I could
have-
win a
yeah.
Guinness World Record for my
Can I submit
empty
it for you?
packets.
Empty packets. Should I?
Empty booster
I might
packets.
email them. Should I email them and
Yeah,
see what they come
I
back
feel like
with?
we should email from
Well,
the SpilltheTeaCG
I-
email.
Hello.
Have I got news for you?
Hello. I have.
Send
I
it
have a
at
story for you.
4:58 on a Friday night.
Yes.
I think
that's the.
Yeah,
I think
the
that's
urgent
the ticket.
business.
But yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see you next time then. Ciao.
Cheers,
Bye
everyone.
then. Bye.
Bye.